Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined in the studio by the founder and president of the Whistler Agency, Tim Whistler. We're so glad you're joining us today. This is a very special two-part series that Tim and I are going to be having a two-week conversation, if you will, all around the iron curtain around your assets, which is estate planning. And Tim, I know we've been preparing a lot for this special two-part series. This is going to be a really powerful conversation. Good to see you. How are you this week?
I'm doing well, Kristen. It's always good to see you and great to be back in the studio with you this week.
Well, thank you. Well, it's no doubt that we need to talk about this because so many folks are hungering for this information. And that's why we really wanted to take our time. We knew it was way too much to just cover on 1 week, right? So we're going to do a 2-week episode. But I know you're hearing this a lot. A lot of folks are concerned about their estate planning needs, correct?
That's absolutely right. It's coming up more and more often, and quite frankly, whenever we engage in that get acquainted conversation, it's part of the conversation, because I'll ask that question. If they don't share it with me automatically, I'll just ask, okay, for dollars that are going to be left over, what's the legacy plan? How are we going to tackle that? Because we don't want to just go into it willy-nilly.
Right.
We want to have a very structured plan in place, because in the end, we're going to talk about this, it benefits us tremendously when we have the plan ready to go.
Oh, for sure. And in the absence of having the right plan, so much can go wrong. And that's really what we want to prevent happening. And yet, even though a lot of folks know they need to engage in estate planning, it's something that often gets procrastinated on, it gets put off. Here's some staggering statistics. The average American adult neglects estate planning. Studies show that 2 out of every 3 American adults still don't have crucial estate planning documents in place. So if that's true for you or those you love, we want to help fix that both this week and next in this very special 2-part series. And, I think that in the whole world of financial planning, Tim, estate planning has been made out to be very complicated, right? It's filled with lawyers, it's filled with legalese. It can often be really overwhelming for folks. But our hope for all of you watching is that you'll leave here today understanding it doesn't have to be as complicated as you might think. And most importantly, it is by far one of the most loving things that you can ever do for those you leave behind. Because when you're grieving, that's not the time on top of everything else you want to be dumped with a mess in your lap and trying to navigate through that. So we hope that you'll be empowered and encouraged to understand that, there are resources available to help you get it done, right? And there's such peace of mind when folks can just get this all buttoned up.
That's exactly right, and very well said. The last thing that we need to do when we're grieving the loss of a loved one is now to deal with a bunch of legal things.
Yes.
Right, and and I've seen my father go through it twice, right? When my mom passed away in the year 2000, what he went through with that, and then he remarried. He married Betty, a wonderful lady, in 2002, and unfortunately she passed away in 2010. To see him go through that twice, I mean, just the grief that we go through as a human being when we are suffering through the loss of a loved one, the last thing we can do is have the mental aptitude to be able to figure all this out at that time.
Right.
So it's not a fun conversation, it's not a joyful conversation, but just like you said so eloquently a few minutes ago, when the plan is in place, what it will do for our families is so well worth the time and effort that we put into it today before the events occur.
And let's face it, none of us are promised tomorrow. I mean, this is why I don't care how old someone is, whoever's watching, everyone needs to have an estate plan. And we're going to talk about why that is today, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, we are.
For sure. All right. Well, diving right in, there's a lot to unpack. But let me just start by asking, what's the most common question or concern that folks typically have regarding their estate planning when they come in to meet with you for the first time?
A lot of times I see that people find it, just like you said, it's difficult to understand. When there's difficulty, the natural reaction then is to be overwhelmed. And then the next reaction is to just avoid it. Right? Stick our heads in the sand and hope it doesn't happen. Well, and unfortunately too, I see that many people have the common misconception that you need to be ultra wealthy to have a plan in place. And that's not true, right? So again, we named the title of the show, The Iron Curtain Around Your Assets, because that's exactly what it's designed to do. So think in terms of a castle, right? Going back to medieval times. Castles were built to have like a defensive mechanism, if you will. Huge walls, right? They had a moat, a big, huge moat around it, right, with a drawbridge to get across, right? It was designed to be a curtain, if you will, around what was inside that castle. So let's take that same analogy and apply it to the assets that we have. The Iron Curtain is designed to protect those assets so you can efficiently and strategically pass those assets on down to the kids and grandkids. And if we don't have that iron curtain in place, just like Kristen said, you know, it will be a plan that you do not want to put your family through. So therefore, having this conversation now can provide some security, some peace of mind, and know that there's a plan in place that when this time frame comes, when it's our time on earth to slip into eternity, we know the plan is in place and things will be passed on as per our wishes.
Yes, and that's what it's all about, making sure that your wishes are carried out. I love that analogy. I think that's really helpful, and I'm glad that you brought up the misconception, because I've heard it too in my work as a financial educator. A lot of people assume, oh, I don't need to have an estate plan. I don't have enough. I'm not ultra wealthy. No, every single person needs to have one. I've heard it best said, Tim, that if you love someone and you have something, you need to have an estate plan, because guess what? If you don't have one, the government has one for you, and the chances are it's not going to be your wishes and what you want to have happen.
That's exactly right. You see it time and time and time again. It's like, you know, I talk about life insurance. You know, life insurance is that ultimate love letter. There is no way better to express your love for your spouse, for your family, than to have that life insurance policy in place. Because again, just like Kristen said, we don't know when that day is going to come. We're not trying to be morbid, but we know two things happen in life. We've already talked about taxes. So now we're talking about, okay, what happens when we do pass away? So just having these plans in place is just such a solid way to, again, honor and cherish the love that we have for our family, and to make that transition of assets according to our plan and not some stranger's plan.
For sure. What are some of the other unexpected benefits to engaging in estate planning and having it done correctly that might be really motivating and encouraging for people watching who are like, yeah, I know I've been putting that thing off. I know I need to do it. What are some other reasons, besides the obvious of what we've already talked about, that folks should consider? Well,
I think one of them, I'm going to just refer to my list here because these are so good. I want to make sure we really dial in on each of these. I think the first one is maintaining control, right? So you think about, again, if you're not able to answer for yourself, but yet you're responsible for paying bills, who do you want to pay those bills for you, right? Who do you trust to make medical decisions on your behalf, right? What do you want doctors to know about your end-of-life wishes? Because we know what can happen when there's multiple people involved. So case in point, let's say you've got 3 children. You and your spouse have got 3 kids. And one spouse passes away, now the surviving spouse is left behind. Now the surviving spouse is now in the hospital, and things are like iffy. What do we do? You've got 3 kids. How many opinions are we going to have at that moment? We're going to have 3 opinions. We don't want to put that burden on the kids while they're grieving and going through that situation of seeing a parent suffer and possibly slip into eternity. So having that ability to maintain that control, having those documents already set in place, relieves that burden off the kids, because now it's not on them to decide, well, I don't know what mom wants, and what do you think? What do you think? All of a sudden now, here comes some animosity. So let's create that plan because it maintains control. You maintain control by documenting your intentions, right? So do you have certain items you want to pass down to a certain family member, right? A special needs child, right? This is very, very frequent. I talked about this on a regular basis with a handful of my clients. They have got a child at home who will need care for the rest of his or her life. And their plan is not only designed to create an income plan for their retirement, but also for the needs that their child needs behind. So now we can have, a way to document to making sure our special needs child is taken care of, after mom and dad have passed away.
Right.
So now we can maintain control, we can document our intentions. And now also we want to look at tax advantages. The last thing we want to do is build up all this portfolio and then lose a bunch of it to the IRS unnecessarily.
Right.
So we can have that plan in place where we can keep more money in the family as opposed to maybe wastefully sending it on to the IRS, unknowing that maybe there was a different plan we could have executed to save some of those tax dollars.
Right.
Simplifies the process. It really does. It sounds so overwhelming, is what Chris and I are going to unpack for the next 2 shows. There's just a lot of things to consider, but at the end of the day, the details is what creates the overwhelming feeling. But the report, the planning, at the end of it, simplifies the whole process. Now we know beyond a shadow of a doubt who gets what. This person's going to answer on my behalf. This is what my wishes are to the doctor. They know. It simplifies the whole process, and ultimately it leads to the last one, the peace of mind. When you have a plan in place, folks, I cannot emphasize to you enough how many times I've sat down with folks on both sides, the people who are going through just chaos. Mom and dad didn't mean that to be the case, but that's where the kids are at. All the way to the other side of, I'm so thankful mom and dad did this for us, because I can't imagine having to have done this not knowing what we didn't know, not knowing what they wanted to do with things, because a lot of times mom and dad aren't that transparent with the kids.
Right.
It's not a favorite topic. It's not like we're talking about a favorite hobby, right? This is the demise of a loved one.
Right.
But if we can have that plan in place and then be comfortable enough to have the conversation and be transparent, the peace of mind that comes from that is so well worth the time and effort to build the plan in the first place.
For sure. That is a strong list to put in the category of motivators to get this done, right?
I hope so.
For sure. Well, as we wrap up this first segment, one thing I do want to clarify is that you yourself are not an estate attorney, but you do partner with people who can then help build the full estate plan. So just share with our viewers a little bit about what you're able to do for them as a part of a complimentary written financial plan as it relates to this conversation of estate planning.
Absolutely. So, when we have that get acquainted conversation and we're going through the details, I will ask those questions. Okay, if we've got kids, we've got grandkids, what's your plan, right? Ideally, if we knew the dates to two events, when the stock market's going to crash and the day we're going to pass away, we wouldn't need a plan, right? Because we would exhaust the entire account value with writing the last check to the undertaker. Problem solved, perfect plan. But we don't know those dates, just like we've said. So what our focus is, when we provide that complimentary written financial plan, it will include, what do you want to do as a legacy plan? What are your thoughts? Even if we just get the generic answer of, well, we're just going to leave them whatever's left behind. That's perfectly fine. We're not trying to dictate how you leave the assets behind. What we're trying to do is help you put the steps in to create the most efficient transfer of the wealth for the kids, for the grandkids. So, if you're not aware of maybe who's a qualified estate planning attorney that we might want to refer to, that's something we can help you locate, help you find, help you search, maybe give you some guidelines as you interview a possible estate planning attorney to be able to put this plan into place for you and make it overall an important part of the overall financial plan.
I am so excited for folks watching today to know that they can reach out to you with the team, that not only can they have a get acquainted conversation to help them with any aspect of financial planning, but especially when it comes to estate planning, if this is something that you have known you've needed to do, but you've been putting it off for all the reasons we stated earlier, why 2 out of 3 Americans have put it off. Let today be the day that you take the action needed to get that peace of mind, knowing that a plan is in place for you that enables you to carry out your wishes. You're just one phone call or QR code scan away from getting that help. So we encourage you to reach out to Tim and the team of the Whistler Agency. 888-992-7829 is the number to call. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply click that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, do you know what the following celebrities have in common? Abraham Lincoln, Pablo Picasso, Sonny Bono, Prince. The list goes on and on. You're going to want to stay with us to find out why they're all connected from an estate planning perspective, and we're going to break down the basics of what you need to know to build your estate plan right after this.
When you start hearing more stories about their grandkids or the birth of another grandchild, to now they start sharing stories about how they're taking care of mom or dad, you start to become part of their family. The relationship kind of builds naturally. We meet on a regular basis. They've got my cell phone number. They can email me. They can text me if there's anything comes to mind. Or whatever the case is, you start to you continue to build that relationship. And what a joy that is whenever somebody calls in and asks, how are you doing? How's Rhonda doing? You become part of a family together, and it becomes very, very, very personable. And every day, get to go to my office and sit down and just look at my clients' databases. I can see who's having birthdays today, and then for them to kind of share with you the joy of having that plan, the joy of having that advisor, that counselor that'll walk right alongside of them through all the years into retirement. I just want to make sure as the years unfold that we just continue to build on the growth and just kind of keep the practice running on solid ground and continue to provide service to clients. As individuals, we strive for better, from a better house, to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes time to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions. A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome, where today Tim and I are talking about the iron curtain that needs to be around your assets. What we mean by that is estate planning. planning. And if you're just tuning in and joining us, this is a very special 2-part series that we are doing on this important topic. We know that you watching have questions and you want to get this done and done correctly. And here's the thing, Tim, as we said earlier, even though this is not the most fun thing to think about, it's never fun to think about when someone passes away, right? But as one of my aging friends loves to remind me, none of us are getting out of this thing called life alive, right? That's the reality.
Yep.
And there's no such thing as a U-Haul attached to a hearse. So therefore, we have to figure this stuff out, right?
Sure
Got to throw in some moments of humor as we talk about a very serious subject here. But if you had to boil down estate planning, and I know I mentioned a bunch of celebrities earlier, we're going to get back to that conversation, but if you had to boil down what estate planning actually is, what does it boil down to?
If we summarize it as most simply as we can, I think it's 3 words. Who gets what? That's really what it is. That's why we're trying to simplify the process if we can. So just think about, you've got stuff, right? We all have stuff. I mean, if look at the storage units, for crying out loud. There's stuff everywhere.
It's a huge business.
We all have stuff, right?
Right.
You get to dictate who gets what. And because if we, that's what we're trying to stress through the next 2 shows, this show and the next one, because if you don't have a plan in place, those 3 words are going to be replaced with 3 different words by saying, they got what? No,
they got what?
Exactly, right.
That's not what we want to have happen.
No, we don't want that to happen whatsoever.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's why we want to avoid that happening to folks, to understand, let's have the conversation. It's not a a pleasant one to have. It's not our pleasure to do that. But there's tools available for us. And we can say, okay, who gets what? Let's kind of have that game plan set out so we can avoid the other 3-word question.
Yes, and that's the key, right? Because again, there's no judgment on whatever one's wishes are, right? Your wishes are your wishes. The point is that you want to be able to have those carried out even after you're no longer here. But that can't happen if you don't have the proper plan in place. And spoiler alert, all those celebrities I mentioned earlier, we had Prince, Jimi Hendrix, Sonny Bono, right? Pablo Picasso, Abraham Lincoln. They didn't have an estate plan. They didn't have a will.
Nope. Can you believe that?
What a mess.
What a mess. And especially when you're talking about people of that magnitude that had, I mean, especially the celebrities.
Yes. Yep.
The assets, the estates, the dollars. Can you even begin to imagine how to unpack that? We know who loved doing that with all the attorneys involved. They loved that.
They made a pretty penny off that. Yep.
But what a shame, though.
Yeah, for sure.
There was never a conversation ahead of time to say, look, this is our stuff.
Yep.
This is who we want the stuff to go to, and we get to decide, not some stranger.
Right, for sure. All right, so we've boiled it down. It boils down to 3 words: who gets what, right?
Yep.
What's the first step in figuring out what tools would be right to carry out a person's wishes? Let's break down the whole concept of estate administration and how it works.
Perfect. And I think, we've got a nice little visual aid that we can pop up on the screen, because I think it's good for us to kind of understand, how this works. So if guys, you want to put that estate administration slide up, you can basically see, again, we're using the very, very technical term of stuff, right?
Yes, everyone's got stuff.
They all have stuff, right? So we're going to break this down in 2 columns. The first column there, it says jointly owned assets, right? So basically, you think of, what do we jointly own? Like maybe, for example, a house with your spouse, or a car, right? Then the next bullet point, accounts where you name a beneficiary. Now, what are we talking about there? We're talking about maybe, like, for example, the beneficiaries you have on your 401k, traditional IRA, a life insurance policy, annuity. Those are the different types of documents where you have those beneficiaries' names specifically for each of those accounts. And then when you pass away, all of these assets pass directly to your heirs immediately.
Right, so that's what the law says, right? So operation of law is whoever's name is listed as the joint owner, whoever's listed as the beneficiary, that's who's going to get that column of stuff.
That's exactly right.
But here's what's interesting. We've said nothing about a will yet, right?
We have not, no.
Because it doesn't matter. Whoever's name is listed on those things, that will always trump whatever the will says.
It sure will, and that's a great segue for us to understand. When you see right there on the screen where it says accounts where you name a beneficiary, folks, if you've not reviewed your beneficiaries for quite some time, make sure you take the time to do so. And if you're not sure how to do that, we can help you do that. We make sure that you understand that life events can alter maybe what you planned to do a few years ago, and now some life events occur. Maybe all of a sudden we need to change that beneficiary, because just like Kristen said, whether you have a will, a trust, or neither, those assets get passed directly to that beneficiary. So making sure the beneficiaries are up to date is very, very critical.
It's crucial. Yeah, we could spend the rest of the time talking about the horror stories of all the times folks haven't updated those. So don't let that be you. All right, so that's the first category of stuff. Going back to our graphic here, let's now move to the second category of stuff. And really, this is everything else that you own, right?
Everything else, all other assets. And what do I mean by that? Clothing, furniture, right? Collectibles, maybe we have a boat. Everything else, all other assets fall into the second category, and this is where the stuff gets distributed to your heirs by going through the probate process, the probate court. Now we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this in our next segment, so make sure you come back to see us again next week because we're going to really unpack details. But we just wanted to provide you kind of with a general overview of how our stuff is broken down in two different categories and how the stuff gets passed on to our heirs.
Yep, and again, you can see there, as when things go through probate, there's three big reasons why a lot of folks want to avoid it, rightly so. Again, we're going to talk more about this in the future, but those legal fees, significant time delays, and it's a matter of public record. I mean, it just gets really messy really quickly,
It
right?
does. You remember back in the day when we had such an invention called the newspaper, right? And you always had the public notices.
Yes.
And that's exactly what they are, folks. The public notices was saying, okay, so-and-so passed away, they had a will, here comes probate. So again, one of the elements of, and we're going to talk about this here in a second, but one of the elements of having that probate, it's just like Kristen said, it's public. It gives creditors the opportunity to have a stake in what's going to be passed out to make sure they get made whole before everything gets distributed.
Yeah, for sure. So it can get very messy, but here's the good news. Again, as we go through the series, we're going to be sharing solutions so that you don't have to deal with this mess, either for yourself if you're passing on or as the loved one going to be receiving this. It's so important for families to be on the same page. I know that's a lot of what you do, right?
It is. I mean, again, money can change people, and it's sad, and the change is not always for the better.
Right.
You know, especially when mom and dad have passed, now there's assets. If there's not a plan in place, like we said before, here comes all the opinions. And a lot of times the opinions are not going to be favorable for what mom and dad truly wanted in the big picture.
Yeah.
So it's a thing where it allows us to simplify the process. It allows us to maybe have some peace of mind knowing the plan's in place. So again, if you've not had this conversation before, it's okay. It's okay and understandable to be apprehensive, but it's not as bad as you think it's going to be because you're the expert. It's your stuff. It's your family. You can dictate what things, where they go, but what we can help you do is make sure you get the documents set aside and set into the right spots as far as how we transition those assets to the kids.
Yep, so important and so crucial. Tim, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, if this is resonating with you, or if you're already working with another financial professional and they are not having these kinds of conversations with you, it's time to get a second opinion. So we encourage you to reach out. Tim and the team of the Whistler Agency are here to help and serve you. That number to call is 888-992-7829, or you're welcome to scan that QR code. You're going to be able to come in, receive that complimentary written financial plan, and if estate planning is something that you're needing help or you have questions about, they would love to walk you through that process for yourself as well. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, I'm going to ask Tim about a very special period of time in his life when he was directly involved with helping people with their estate planning. You're not going to want to miss what he has to say about that right after this.
Think estate planning mistakes only happen to celebrities? Think again. Prince, Aretha Franklin, and even Ted Williams have all left behind estates without a proper plan, leading to years of legal disputes and financial loss for their families. But these mistakes aren't just for the rich and famous. Without a solid estate plan, your assets could be tied up in probate, subject to high taxes, or even end up in the wrong hands. The good news? These mistakes are avoidable. A well-structured estate plan ensures that your assets go where you intend, with minimal hassle for your loved ones. Have you reviewed your plan recently? Do you know how tax laws impact your estate? Don't let your legacy become another cautionary tale. Hi, I'm Tim Whistler, retirement income planner and author of License to Spend, a retirement plan based on income as opposed to IFCOME. Everyone should enter retirement with confidence. In my new book, I share proven strategies to help you plan for a confident and secure future. To take the first step, scan the QR code to reserve a spot on our calendar for a no-obligation, get-acquainted conversation, and you'll also receive a complimentary copy of my book, License to Spend.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and we're so glad that you're joining us for this very special 2-week series all on estate planning. We've been boiling down the basics, helping you know what it is you need to know to make sure that your wishes will be carried out once you're no longer here. And again, as we said earlier in the show, Tim, we know this is something that often is really overwhelming for folks. It's not always fun to think about, but you and I are firm believers it's one of the most loving things you can ever do for those you leave behind. And we want to help you have that peace of mind that comes from having a solid estate plan. I know you want to share this awesome story. I would love for our viewers to hear about this 18-month period of your life where you were actually helping folks set up revocable living trusts, correct?
Right. So what happened going back to mid-2017 through 2018. I've always been passionate about trying to connect people with an estate plan and attorney so they can have the access to these types of procedures, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I answered an ad on LinkedIn, and basically this company provides estate planning services to clients no matter what state that they're in. They always had a proprietary attorney that can serve each respective state. So long story short, they were looking for an advisor that would go serve their current client base and making sure, number one, they've reviewed it recently, making sure everything's still lined up because we talked about the beneficiary review.
Right.
And number two, as a retirement income planner, making sure that the trust is properly funded, right? Because what good is a cell phone if it doesn't have a battery in it?
Right.
It doesn't work. What good
Yep.
is a trust if it's not properly funded?
For sure.
So I answered this ad, and through multiple conversations, I basically came on board as their guy. So the state of Illinois is my territory. And they said, we're going to fill your calendar. We have over 1,000 clients who have our trust just in Illinois alone. So you can close your office, work from home, and we'll pack your calendar up. I said, okay, this is going to be a different venture for my life. Put about 30,000 miles on my car in that short amount of time. I mean, I was Wisconsin border, Kentucky, Missouri, Indiana. I was all over the state reviewing. It was incredibly eye-opening because it was during that tenure that I understood what that trust meant and what it did, what it was designed to do for the family. But more importantly, I had 5 different families reach out to me that said, okay, Mom and Dad have passed away. I'm now the successor trustee. What do we do next? And to walk them through a very simple to follow checklist and get everything set up. Every single family, we walked them through the checklist. I gave them each of my card. And I said, if you have any more questions, call me. Of those 5, nobody called me back. The process is simple. It was right there. And a lot of them even said to me, we're so thankful Mom and Dad did this for us. So that really just kindled the fire and the passion that I have now for this, from the standpoint of let's have this conversation whenever we meet and talk about a retirement income plan for what you want to do in retirement.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. And we have so much more to continue this conversation next week. Share with our viewers why they need to tune back in and what we're going to be covering next.
We're going to go through the 2 main options when it comes to how do we pass on the estates. Are we going to go through the government's plan, or we're going to go through our own plan? And you are not going to want to miss it because we got a couple more graphics to share for you, and it will be eye-opening.
Wonderful. Tim, thank you so much. To our viewers, we're here for you. We encourage you to reach out to get this done. Stay with us. We'll be back next week to cover those 2 main subjects about your estate planning. We'll see you next time.